But now I'm hype, because here we got introduction to the most notorious gang in South Frobby, the 15 deep pack of pirates with Kingpin Razor at its center, known for smoking that position with his dead accurate serve. Just through the scallywags is a strip of beach, then victory. From laser beam dodgeball to video game SEO serial killers, Hunter x Hunter's Greed Island arc was hard. If you fucks with this vid, go check out this one I did on the Goldie Pond arc from Promised Neverland, cause like this one, it was a hidden gem among the other arcs in each series. I love making these arc review videos because all it takes is one cold ass arc to move a manga from decent to legendary. I was gonna make this video about the highlights of the Greed Island arc, but soon into my research I realized the whole arc was a highlight reel, consequently making this a definitive guide on the Greed Island arc. Enjoy. But of course, beat the goofy out that like button like it owes you money, and let's get into it. Greed Island, the payout we needed for the antics and wild situations that led up to this brilliant point. We have, Gon, who desperately wanted to meet his father, who he determined would be in the Greed Island game, from the scraps of evidence left by him, what looks to be a PS2 memory card. So Gon got the bright idea, let's play the game. As easy as it sounds, it involved much more than our little protagonist predicted, which led him to many wacky and dangerous situations. He wanted the game, but this game had some pretty impossible prerequisites. First order of business, get my hunter license and learn the absolute basics of Nen. Easy enough, right? Nah. It only makes sense to go through things in chronological order to really drive home the point that this was no small feat for our spiky haired devil. This nigga had to eventually enroll himself into a death match against the strongest villains and most overpowered demons in the nation, where only 1 out of 10,000 people make it to the main exam, not even passing it, but the pre-exam, before the main one, and the pass rate for rookies at least, is once every 3 years. These motherfuckers will poison you on the way to the next trial, and check up on you periodically to make sure you are actually dying. Yup, you guessed it right, here's the first posting for the most trifling niggas of all time, buddy's name is Tampa. The name of a fellow who lives on the morally black of things. Definitely a guy who was always up to no good. He tried to take out Killua with poison, which I honestly understand. My cardio is whack. If I was running for days and I see a nigga waltzing along on a skateboard, looking as deadpan and nonchalant as this, I would try to send him to the pearly gates myself. We fuck with Killua because we are just bystanders watching the story unfold. But I know motherfuckers there were waiting for him to die, patiently. But nah, Tampa, you made too many mistakes for me to let this slide. You should have broke the fourth wall and did some research on anime and manga, and realized that the character with a nonchalant attitude and weird quirky characteristics are not to be messed with. Especially a nigga like Killua. I know for a fact all the teachers and even the principal himself referred to him as Sir, and when they slipped up, Killua would correct them. Tampa's role in the story was to show how truly lawless things were, and how there could potentially be many other nefarious actors in this play for the Hunter license. And this is just Act 0, Scene 1. Gon gets his ass handed to him multiple times through this arc, but it's through these trials and tribulations that we start to see exactly how expansive this world is. Warriors from all across the world given this opportunity because they were the top dogs in their local region, losing their lives in hopes for fame and fortune. It may be that Gon's psychotic resolve towards his ambition kept him 10 toes down and set like a pit bull towards the prize, which is a brand spanking new hunter license, a step closer to his goals. It can easily be argued that the knowledge gained in this hellish experience was more valuable than this piece of paper awarded to him, for he created lifelong companions that were vital to his success in the future. Specifically Killua, which leads us to the next arc. Following the backstory of the Zodiacs, shines more light on the atrocities that have sharpened this absolute demented boy close to perfection. A master of the killing arts and immune to most if not all examples of cruel and unusual punishment. The mysterious Killua is fleshed out here. We learn about the scandals surrounding the family and how this specifically affected Killua and his upbringing. We learn about his black butler, Canary, who is a combat specialist in her own right, and how big this dog is, and how heavy this door is. At this point we figure out that Gon may have bitten off more than he could chew with his hefty goals, and that our main cast is broke. Too broke to get their little grimy hands on the coveted game, so they set their sights on a place where they can get some quick cash fast, which leads us to the next arc, Heaven's Arena. Objective, get Ahsoka his number 44 badge back, cause he's a weirdo, and prize a bitch. Stack bread and break some off with the homie, and make these dumb deadly hands even deadlier. Now, how can we make these dumb deadly hands even deadlier when they are already as deadly as human hands can be? Easy, throw some nin on them cuz. Yup, my sons learn Nen in the Heavens Arena, and things start to get interesting. This arc makes this already full and robust story go from minor to major. That Rotten Tomatoes rating jumped at least 15 points with this addition. Togashi managed to incorporate a power system that had enough constraints to not bust the world he built, but allowed more than enough wiggle room to make some of the most creative and iconic powers I have ever seen in anime and manga, hands down. These constraints, contracts, and conditions applied to Nen allowed the series to blossom to its legendary status. Despite the series being played with as many hiatuses as it has garnered a fan base with a chronic addiction to its source material, giving Crack in the 80s a run for his money. The best way to put it, bro. The Heavens Arena arc had hands and magic. Simple. We had Ahsoka being sus and shit, striking fear into these innocent boys' hearts. Then we witnessed him evict a soul from a nigga's body. We even had wheelchair niggas getting it in. And under the tutelage of Wing, their Nen Sensei, or might I say Nensei, they climbed the Tower of Power to unleash a reign of pain on niggas who left the umbrella at home. Of course, as intellectuals and readers, we appreciate the fact that the NPCs didn't check the weather and prepare accordingly, because yeah, motherfuckers were soaked, caught slipping by a duo of juveniles. During their time there, the goals start to shift from solely cash to five-fingered revenge, because Gon really wants all the smoke with Ahsoka. They have unfinished business. Hisoka humiliated the prideful Gon during the Hunter exam, and he trying to get it back in blood. Gon most definitely gets his lick back when he delivers a savage right-handed fade to Hisoka's face. This fade was heavy, could have rocked Zeus himself. Hisoka's weird masochistic ass approves, and they shake on it and exchange the goods. A heavy fade for the number 44 badge. Gon, despite being a crowd favorite, ultimately loses the fight, but gains respect, saved by the judge, who allowed Hisoka to win sooner to spare Gon the abuse. Now with Cheddar stacked and these dumb deadly hands even deadlier, they get back on a path to the main quest, finding the game, to find the dad. Now we arrive at York New City, where the magic happens. Here our two main characters meet again, but with two totally different objectives. Gon for the game and Kurapika for redemption. York New for him was an endeavor to retrieve the Scarlet Eyes and avenge his clansmen. Kurapika, hired as a bodyguard for one of the Don's daughters, Neon, an expert Nen user herself, who can tell the future and has very, might I say, weird and expensive taste. She uses her daddy's allowance money in a place where everything, appendage or fluid, costs thousands to millions of dollars. I'll be damned if I had a daughter this spoiled. Shorty moving my blood. Oh yeah, Kurapika has an epic battle with Yuvigen and beats him silly. They end up at the auction at York New in hopes of finding the coveted game, with the game that was initially so out of reach now within their pubescent little clutches. Of course, Greed Island sells for an extremely high price to a man who will stop at nothing to get what he wants. Anyone, to beat the game Greed Island and return back the card Angel's Breath to cure his terminally ill wife. This guy is that guy, the multi-billionaire Batra, who ultimately loses half of his fortune on his quest to save his beloved wife. He is accompanied by a seasoned Greed Island vet, Tsusagira, a sweat who has completed over 80% of the game. He provides more vital info for both Gon and Killua. First, that they are 2 weeks to survive in the game and have 3 days to work on their so-called Nen before the Greed Island game tryouts that will be held on September 10th in 4 days. Second, that there is something amiss inside the game, being over half of the hunters have given up, where all progression stats have stagnated. So now they are making sure that the next group selected to play can bare minimum return back to the real world to debrief. Third, you cannot force a character out of the game, meaning you cannot swap an unproductive hunter with a possibly more productive one. The only way back to the real world in the game is either winning, using a return back to real world card, using the ports, or without your soul, where your carcass will return if you die in the game. Now with the understanding of the full weight of the situation, the boys train for Greed Island. They decide to learn Hatsu to make these things lethal. Noticing how unpractical and restrictive Kurapika's special attack, Change of Judgment was, they set some strict guidelines for themselves into pursuit for their own special attacks and abilities. Their main objective is a powerful, unrestricted Nen ability that synergizes with their natural strengths, is practical, and has as many real-world applications as possible. These guys get into lab to create a devastating finisher to turn all their ops into victims, both using bruised egos to fuel their passion to get into their bags. Killua learns his Chidori stream, and Gon becomes Mike Tyson Jr., with an uppercut fabled even by the gods. It's September 10th and trials begin. Killua becomes Light Yagami as he analyzes the best approach to get selected for the exhibition. 100 are in line waiting their turn, more than 50 clustered around looking for a chance, about 20 haven't moved. These 20 are demons, gulag dogs themselves, Look at the smug and nonchalant swagger they exude as they look down upon the lost squirming tadpoles, as they have already figured out the name of the game. It's not first come first served, it's the worst gets served and the best gets selected. So they just wait to get selected, and this cool cat lays it plainly to Killua, who is obviously dissecting the whole situation. He tells Killua that with the use of multi-taps, there is only a max of 32 spots left, but they may only hire around 20. Killua is shocked by this info, but straight-faced Gon has already come to this conclusion. He deduced this by his simple but effective shonen logic. Since we're here, it's common courtesy to interview all of us. So, I might as well just wait my turn. The cool cat introduces himself as Puhat and makes his leave to audition for a spot as Killua shatters his cool guy act by stating, "Those who can't do, teach," hinting that he may be a bum like everyone else. That's crazy, bro. Dialogue and character interaction is A1 so far. Killua's up next, and his audition literally shocks the seasoned and flavored hunter, exclaiming that this level of progression in the span of just 96 hours is impossible. But we are aware of Killua's dark past, and how it was occasionally illuminated by the shock of electric torture. Killua, seeing the qualifying bracket, realizes that Puhat may not be a bum after all, and Gon, with an explosive entrance, qualifies as well, with the uppercut fabled by gods. A grand total of 21 contestants are selected to participate in the conquering of Greed Island, with 50 billion big ones being at stake. They use rock, paper, scissors to decide the playing order, and the games begin. Gon is sucked into the game, and his life is now an isekai. The game host greets Gon and relays the message that Ging left for him. "Welcome, Gon. This is a game I made with my friends. Well, go ahead and enjoy. If you thought there'll be a clue to help you find me, too bad. I just wanted to show off our game. Anyway, now you're stuck here until you get the item that'll let you out, so play your heart out." That is all. Nigga, what? He spent the last couple of months going through absolute hell and helps to find his dad just to become a beta tester for a full dive VR MMORPG experience. Anyway, the game host proceeds to explain the game's rules to Gon. This is where it gets very interesting. Rules, contracts, and constraints are the concepts that have made Hunter x Hunter the legendary series it is today. Nen shines because it is bound by a strict set of laws and rules, and Greed Island shines in the exact same fashion. We know the name of the game is to collect all 100 unique cards, but it was these rules that placed these characters under such absolute pressure that results in a dominant arc being born, with the two major spells being Book and Gain, whereas Book allows you to store items as cards, and Gain allows you to use these cards. These coming rules surround the two major spells. Once a card has been gained or used, it cannot be returned back to card form. There is a card conversion limit, and this varies by card, but this aids to increase scarcity and rarity, ultimately promoting more conflict as hunters battle to get all the cards. Newly made cards must be placed in the binder within 60 seconds, or they will be permanently reverted back to item form. Lastly, if a player dies in game, not only does he die in real life, but all of the individual's items in game will be destroyed along with them. Though these being the most basic rules are definitely the most important, let's see how our two juveniles fare. The Greed Island arc spanned volumes 13 to 18, a total of 66 chapters, 22 episodes in the 1999 anime adaptation, and 17 in the more recent 2011 adaptation, starring a gang of hunters, pro to amateur, becoming certified victims by ours truly, the Bomber. Now this guy's an obvious threat to national security, and it's the NSA's job to take care of him. Greed Island is sovereign land, and the terrorist threat that's putting a hindrance in the pursuit of the group's happiness is Genthru, the #1 threat to society, and Bara and Sub, both of his bum-ass minions. Though these guys look like total jokes, they are what made this arc so interesting and memorable for me. These were demons with no morals. These niggas just wanted to beat the game and kill niggas in the process. Like how ISIS is a subsidiary to Al-Qaeda, these guys were affiliated with Laughing Coffin. Now that's crazy, but now these guys were very similar to the band of murderous thieves in SAO, and I would have later rolled over in my grave if I failed to make that reference. But back to the main quest. The Phantom Trope entered the game in hopes of finding a Nen exorcist to remove Krollo's affliction produced by Kurapika. Gotta hand it to Kurapika though. Buddy was moving like Jiraiya Sensei when he cursed dude with that 5-palm seal, rendering the once powerful leader of a most notorious group of felons useless, and Gon and Killua arrived to find more clues on Papa Freesis. Very soon they again realize they bit off more than they can chew and look at the buff lolly for guidance. This lolly is Nen expert Biscuit Kruger, former master Ring. They're former master, small world. Before all that takes place, the duo notice someone is watching them, adding an air of mystery to the already mysterious. With so many options and no strict course of direction, they decide on a game of rock, paper, scissors to to dictate their path through this new world. Gon wins after tricking Killua, and he chooses the complete opposite direction from Killua. Back in the real world, we learn another interesting clue in the mystery of the game rules. If you leave the game for more than 10 days, your save file will be erased. A more seasoned player out of nowhere crashes in front of them, and he is drooling at the mouth at this newfound opportunity because he knows for a fact they are noobs. Folks, we get to see firsthand not only how spells work, but how power corrupts the human mind. Buddy starts to bully them with no remorse. He finds their names, creeping both Gon and Killua out, and to top it off, he places a tracking spell on Killua, confirming that he is indeed a weirdo. This card, the trace spells in every stalker's bag, allowing an individual to see the current location of one player at any time. Yup, he definitely lives a life of crime. However, he isn't a big fan of punishment and tucks his tail when Killua presses him. Soon after that, they arrive at their first town and enter a rock paper scissors contest in hopes of winning the item, Sword of Truth. While the duo eat, they get their first IRL experience of an NPC. They ask the chef questions about spell cards, and I guess they didn't code him to be able to entertain such lines of questioning, so dude just malfunctions. Despite that, he does give some useful info about card classification, where each individual card is numbered and assigned a difficulty rating based on its use and functionality, with SS being the hardest or strongest, and H being the easiest or weakest. These ranks are also based on commonality and impact, whereas on average a card like, let's say, Drawbridge may be extremely more useful than another card like Levy, but Drawbridge still gets a lower rating because of A, how many cards are in circulation, and B, the overall lack of creativity in its use cases. Just like that, in the mere 4 chapters, Togoshi managed to breathe life into this new world of fiction within his larger work of fiction. A1 world building, from the wide-span landscape shots, accompanied with the much smaller things, like leaderboards and a wall of possible side quests, the fact that there may be an overarching mystery that will keep you involved, hints towards villains within a lawless game, lively towns with their own unique histories and methods, contests, food, NPCs or people available to answer questions, and the unexplained death of this guy in the middle of town to top it off. And with this guy's explanation of the entire situation, where there are baddies who kill to win, and goodies who find strength in numbers, we are now introduced to a new and cool addition to the story, the dynamic of factions on an island controlled by scarcity, with all the temptation imaginable towards greed, thus the name Greed Island, or my take on it. On the surface level, greed seems to be the name of the game as you smuggle every card worth value in your binder, but if you dig deeper, the root is scarcity. Scarcity is a concept that spurred every iconic moment in this arc, to the battle of the bombers, to the monopolization of spell cards. With humans being inherently selfish, a lack of resources means an eventual increase in bloodshed. Since it's a race against time, for Batora's wife gets sicker and sicker by the second, the contestants are forced to garner as many cards as possible, as soon as possible. Greed doesn't exist on its own, but only as a byproduct of scarcity. If we had unlimited food, you'll never be outed for taking more than your fill, but only as soon as it becomes scarce, so when the fingers of judgment can be pointed at you. Only when your active greed leaves another's belly empty, or in this case, another's binder empty. And Greed Island plays on this concept of scarcity very well. A little too well, might I say. Things were made to be too scarce, by limiting the amount of slots, limiting the amount of vital cards in circulation, and also increasing the number of contestants. If you want to win, there's no way around it. You are going to have to fight. Throw hands. But if fighting is not your forte, there is a way around it, and that, folks, is factions. It's crazy to think just how wild and barbaric humans can get when left up to their own devices. Pop culture is always a reflection of reality, and sometimes this reflection is hard to look at when dealing with the dark truths of human behavior. The Stanford Prison Experiment is a dark look into human nature, where a simple cops and robbers experiment turn hellish. Regular harmless citizens become abusive as they have unchecked power over other human lives. A simple joystation game turns hellish as car conversion limits hit their max. Greed Island is now in its endgame, and Gon and Killua will arrive at the game's most interesting point. The duo attend a newcomer meeting where they discuss the current state of the game and the events that led them there. This is a great scene, for it sets the mood for the remainder of the arc. The dark undertone carried on from this point. Things go from hopeful and optimistic to glum and damning. If you kill someone, you can't get his cards. This rule was meant to prevent players from killing each other. They just failed to have the foresight to see how desperation changed the whole state of the game. The element of the game that threw a wrench in their own plan to keep things civil was the fact that you can't leave until you find a spell card or beat the game. I repeat, you can't leave until you find a spell card or beat the game. This will leave a lot of sad souls no option but to kill or bully to get what they need. Like this wolf in sheep's clothing that not only appears in chapter 130 though the newcomer meeting, but leads it. This guy here of course is Skin Through the Bomber, the type of guy who will steal your phone and help you find it. He, with the help of the other faction leaders, offers an opportunity that seems too good to be true, considering all the uncontrollable variables. We can beat the game in 3 months if you guys help us get about 1900 spell cards, so we can take the cards we need at will from any opposing group until we win. Then once we win, the reward will be split up among us based on your impact towards the cause. Gon says yeah I'm straight and dips, cause he feels taking cards from other people is dirty, and Killua follows. But Gon, being as perceptive as he is, probably detected that there was something amiss. Now the boys know the true condition of the game. They have entered the endgame where everyone at this point has a lot of cards, but not enough. Card conversion limits are high, so the most efficient option to getting cards is by force, either taking to add the card to your own binder, or killing to make it now possible to find this card later and add it to one's binder. Last but not least, there are definitely other groups out there possibly much more nefarious than this one, cause whole time the Phantom Troop is on the island trying to catch kill streaks. These guys decide to kill as many players as possible in order to gather all the best cards in the game. They also crack the code, being that the game is not a game at all, but it stays somewhere in the real world, and the physical game copy's job is only to teleport you to the island. On the way to the in-game town Macedor, Biscuit attempts to align herself with the boys, but they decline. It isn't after the headache of watching the boys fail day after day where Biscuit decides to take the boys under her wing as pupils. She then introduces herself and exposes the boys' apparent weaknesses, such as the inability to use Gyo, I don't know which one it is, mediocre combat experience, and a complete lack of situational awareness. This is pointed out when she detects a very skilled madman who suppressed his bloodlust is out to get them. And the whole time, Gon and Killua were none the wiser. Killua was especially shook because even in his hypervigilant state, he still missed him. Biscuit sees these boys as helpless pups who could easily be eaten alive on this dog-eat-dog island. She tells them to hide so she can get her ones in with none other than Benolt, the very skilled madman bounty hunter cannibal who prefers young adult woman flesh.
You're weird!
His nin ability is creepy too, where any piece of hair cut by his special scissors, when ingested, will give him a full bio of that person. Hey kids, be happy this ability is not common, cause Buddy could taste the line of coke he snorted 4 years ago, then snitch on you. But nah, he gets a full rundown on Biscuit and gets 2 shocking pieces of info. The first surprised him, and the second quite literally sealed his fate. Now check it out, Biscuit is actually 57, which we in part knew, but in addition to that, her flesh is like forged steel. An Iron Woman, her 57-year-old self, accepts this villain's respectful request for a duel, and then methodically deals with him, reversing his momentum to place Benolt in a suboptimal position, then delivering a devastating blow with a fist forged of steel. She doesn't stop there, for she delivered further insults that smited the bad guy, but shook both Gon and Killua to their cores. If he were a game character, would be able to convert him into a card, I'd say he'll be a rank D in that case. The once big-headed boys were humbled, yet again, because what does that say about them if he was leaps and bounds more skillful than them? Shit, what does that say about Biscuit, who effortlessly squashed this man? That she is in fact a certified double because Benolt soon sells his soul to her. I'll be damned if I let a lolly punk me like this. See, she makes him Gon and Killua was punching back for the next 2 weeks. And if he doesn't comply, he dies. Shit, with how severely hurt he is, he can possibly still die, but Gon nor Killua can get a hit on him. No, furthermore, attempting to do so can be fatal for them. The duo is further humbled when their 2v1 versus a mortally wounded hunter is a stalemate, but they soon overpower him with the use of their wits. And Buddy is shook. On a serious note, hats off to Dagashi for encapsulating such emotion in his character's illustrations. This is not a motion picture after all, so the more details the better. Like how he is sweating bullets, looking like me when I eat too much dairy. The name of the game changes as they realize their options. Instead of shooting for being able to beat him as a duo, let's better prepare ourselves for the future and be able to confidently beat him individually. So Gon, being as cunning and optimistic as he is, looks at the situation as a glass half full instead of empty and decides to take his time and get the most out of his training. Then we get a deeper look into the life of Benolt, which can be simply described as a series of misfortunate events. He tries to peace out in the middle of the night and gets bitched by a duo of pubescent boys, and in his youth, he tried to return a wallet and got chastised for it, which sucks because it was genuinely a generous act, but the world deemed it as otherwise. Benolt just wants human decency, and I guess he gets that when Biscuit spares his life after the 10-day long training session. In her eyes, she already got all she wanted out of him, dumb Delia hands, for her 2 gems. Soon after, they end up at Macedor to grab some spell cards for training, where we are blessed with another tinge of world building. Most won't think as much, but small little things like this make artificial worlds feel like they have less preservatives. Everything is a card. a real solution to very real world problems. They arrived back at camp to continue their training, which was cool as fuck to observe. Shit was like some old kung fu movie, wax on, wax off type shit, forcing kids to do unconventional tasks that immensely aid in their training. They are tasked with digging their way to their next destination, which proves to be much harder and laborious than it sounds. Through this, they learn the glory and pride found in hard work. It's like no. They learn Shu, which buffs tools, weapons, and items, and how to be hypervigilant, even in their sleep. Biscuit, knowing the full history of the game, being that Ging was a creator and had all the intentions in the world to have his son eventually play it, she realizes and sees the game for what it truly is, a training simulator, where if you play the game correctly, you are guaranteed to walk away much stronger than before. The creators of the game definitely had intent and vision. So what 3 cards did Ging intend for Gon to take home? The boys learn the basics of combat. When we're watching the pimps of the Hell's Arena fight, all we saw were fancy moves, but now we get a breakdown of the back end of these moves. What creates these moves? The explanation of the basics of Nen Aura magnification in offense and defense. It added a very technical element to combat that is grounded in real fight practices. These examples can be seen in boxing where based on the power of the strike, you choose whether to block, parry, or dodge the strike completely because even a well-timed block would hurt. They continue at this for the next 2 weeks. All while the bomber gets active. Buddy pulls up to guild meeting and outs himself as a bomber with arms spread open ready for all the smoke. They try to rush his ass, very bad idea. See now the bomber is really mankind's cousin, so he violates with them fat ass mandibles that he calls hands. McFoley busted a nut watching this scene. But nah, after a brief explanation of his ability, everyone is shook because they realize he, one of the founding members, is a villain with an evil master plan and they are all simply pawns in it. He holds them all hostage with a countdown sound of life to force their compliance. And this guy doubles down on this fact after deep analysis states that if we all rush him, we are all gonna get smoked. The hunters value their lives more than the fortune and decide to hand over the cards. When they arrive for the trade, Puhat tries to strike a deal with them, but the bomber was not with it, bruh, and deletes the safe file, sending back his severed head and introducing us to another unofficial rule, that if you kill a player outside the game, their card data is not lost. His henchmen are certified steppers in their own right. One goes to press the guild for the 81 spell cards and needs a lead to get back home. They deny it to him, and he says, "You chose death." This guy even has a change of heart and tries to appease him with the lead spell card, and he still rocks his ass and little bros him afterwards, stating, "You should have done that to begin with." Hey bro, that's crazy. Bro, that was hard to look at. He's wild for doing that to another grown ass man. Cutting back to the trade though, they make the swap happen and they kill them all anyway. Yo bro, that is crazy. I forgot this happened, to be honest bro. He took care of all of them. But he said no witness. I haven't read this arc in years bro, and that should surprise me. Genthru has so much malice within him that if he dies, he will be reborn as a devil. And in Chainsaw Man, angels will be making contracts with him, exuding the confidence that the later Miriam had when he was born, as he laughs about their deaths. These are the demons that the trio, Gon, Killua, and Biscuit will soon have to face. The Phantom trope confirmed that Greed Island is not a simulation, but staged in the real world. As a result, the Game Master detects them as intruders. We get our introduction for one of the game devs, the lean, clean, mean fighting machine, the dodgeball demon himself, Razor, who boosts them off the island with special spell card Eliminate, then proceeds to destroy their boat with one serve. It would be disrespectful as fuck if he decided to destroy the boat first, then kick them off, just to deliver the message. But he didn't do that. I wish he did. He pretty much just says if you want to play, get in the correct way. Ironically, as the troop try to get in, our little gang is trying to bust out. Cause folks, Killua ain't even a hunter yet, and he risks missing the opportunity again if he doesn't leave ASAP. It's not specified exactly how they got the transport ticket card that allowed Killua to leave the game, but they get it. One of the last surviving members of the guild, a Gingane, something like that, I don't know, is not only an altruist, but an exorcist. He uses his remaining seconds to go around the island with the spell cards he has left to warn them of the sins committed by the bomber gang. He also exercises Genthru's Nen ability countdown. As a result, the Conjure Nen beast clings to him until either Genthru dies or he satisfies the condition to disarm the Nen. Meanwhile, it's chapter 148, and Killua arrives at the hunter exam with something to prove. There are way too many applicants, so the director decides to narrow it down with an all-out brawl. Knock out 5 people? Bet, Killua said. Nah, I'll do one more, and proceed to take care of all of them. Like Zabuza of the Hidden Mist, sauteing niggas in the shadows, Killua blitzes them all, forcibly inducing REM sleep and made all the local doctors rich. This nigga's a monster. And rounds up all of their badges with the swagger of a Black Air Force Academy stepper, setting the record for the quickest hunter exam of all time. 1 hour and 30 minutes, and possibly sooner than that, just cause he had to round up all of their badges. Killua gets back to Greed Island, and he is given a rundown of what he missed, and Gon also shows him his new move. Now officially being done with basic training, the trio's major focus now shifts to clear the game. They accumulate spell cards by performing impossible feats and being over-leveled for the mobs, quests, and baddies they are faced with. They run into a game based solely on luck and not skill, but fret not. Gon has the double lucky dice and puts them to good use, winning your Rainbow Diamond card first try. Killua then risks it for the Biscuit and uses the dice to win a poker game, acquiring the fledgling Gambler card. At this point, the gang's living a good life. They put in so much work in the last 3 months that the game is now a cakewalk, acquiring card after card after card. This is good fiction. Tensions grow higher on the island. The Bomber Gang is now sitting at 91 cards, and Tetsugura at 95. A race against time to see who will acquire all 100 cards. Getting through is just a very bad person, bruh. He makes his 2 captives roll the double dice of fortune or great misfortune in hopes of getting some good rank 8 cards. Then these hooligans devise a plan and execute. They succeed in finessing Tetsugura's group out of multiple cards. The trade setup was already in their favor. The Bombers were just going to swap 1 Knight of Jade for their Patrick Force, Spirit Away Hallow, and Miniature Dragon. But it said, nah, fuck that fair shit. They did as put their ski mask on and pulled the wildest heist in Greed Island history. The Bomber is now after the Wild Luck Alexandrite, and would you look at that? Our trio just acquired that card through Gon's quick wits of using his necklace to lift the curse on the villagers. Interesting. An effort is established to stop the Bomber Gang from being the game. This effort includes multiple groups including Gon's, where they exchange useful information for cards. This drives them to Safari to get info on Strip of Beach, and ultimately earn a monopoly to barge the Bomber Gang from completion. But now I'm hype, because here we got introduction to the most notorious gang in South Frobby, the 15 deep pack of pirates with Kingpin Razor at its center, known for smoking that position with his dead accurate serve. Just through the scallywags is a strip of beach, then victory. Thugs! Look at how they look when we first see them niggas. Posted all with their goon hats. Buddy looked like Ed Evil Twin brother. Advacio some shit, bro. They end up taking care of this swag-bellied ass nigga to get to Razor, and now for the athletic contest that leads to the later iconic dodgeball game. The first event is boxing, and this victim volunteers as tribute. He put in some good jabs, but ultimately gets slumped because Buddy teleported a, as Killua said, a brain-jarring uppercut. Next event is soccer juggling and biscuit sales. Finally, Killua and Big Dude get their ones after all the shit they talked. Killua loses on purpose. Why? Because their group they were with was full of bums, so it wasn't even worth the effort to try anymore. Like niggas was bitchy, weak, dumb, and unathletic, so they use this occurrence as a learning experience only to gather information for when they return. The trio, now quartet, brainstorm a dream team capable of defeating Razor and his gang. This leads them down the rabbit hole of who is this Krollo Lucifer motherfucker, and from that they stumble into Ahsoka, who uses alias because he knew the Phantom Troop would end up here, and helps to find an exorcist capable of removing the curse placed on Krollo by Kurapika. Ahsoka is just a freak-ass masochist who wants to run the ones with Krollo again, and this was all a ploy just to do so. There's actually more to this because Killua thinks he is lying or hiding something, but their efforts lead them to IA, or AIAI, I don't know how to pronounce that bullshit, the City of Love, where all the NPCs play out corny rom-com scenarios. They got Cinderes out here, sluts, smuts, and all. Gon's self-righteous ass gets suckered right into the madness, attempts to save a damsel in distress, and he is punished for it. Niggas said the corner's lying too. Hold it right there. You can play this the whole time they walk through the city. The Oblivion NPC Starter Pack. Killua was right though. Hisoka was definitely hiding his affiliation with the troop, and they meet with Tetsugura where the tables turn. He has to do a tryout for them now, to see if he is good enough for the fight. He is, and they recruit him with 3 other hunters. Allied forces sweep Razor's gang, winning the first 3 events, and Razor's done with it. He orders all of his men to lose so he can have his turn with them. But Pobo denies because he still has smoke with Killua, but doing this violates his contract and breaks the 4th wall, hinting at the fact that all the NPCs are really just paid actors bound by some contract to the game devs, Razor and gang that we know of so far. This was cool to watch. It is instead shown to us through expert storytelling through a conflict that is very realistic. These contracts are no joke though, because it seems like breaking the immersion of the game in front of the candidates, as the game is referred to as taboo, can result in death. Now onto Razor's sick and demented dodgeball game. An allied forces panic while trying to assemble a team of 8. They got 6, but the rest pussy and don't want to play. How did they end up here, bruh? Talking about the limps and the simps. Did they just learn then to get their next video game fixed after completing World of Warcraft or some shit? Anyways, God asked, do you mind if we only have 6 people? And he said, I sure do, that won't work. Yeah, psycho. Now with the cat out of the bag that the game is not a game but real life, Razor delivers a message to Gon before the game commences. Your dad told me not to go easy on you when you got here. Cold! The dodgeball game begins. Razor uses his eliminated teammates as ricochet points, but amplify the force of his attacks through the element of surprise. He gives Tsugiura scoliosis, and Hisoka again shows how practical his nin ability, Bungee Gum, is, using it as a trump card for the allied forces. Razor counters with creating giant-sized doppelgangers to catch powerful throws. Razor then winds up a devilish throw, which makes Tsugiura shit his pants, and Gon lose his shoes. We're gonna skip a little bit in the battle to here, where we see a dark shift in the relationship between Gon and Killua. Gon is fully aware that Killua's hand is mangled, but totally disregards this for victory, lacking the self-awareness to see that this was selfish. I don't know if this is arrogance, ignorance, or self-righteousness, but he truly thinks that there is nothing wrong here. Seems like he is thinking, if Killua or anyone needed to sacrifice me for the mission, I would do it in a heartbeat, so why can't Killua in this case? Gon, a foolhardy kid with too much pride. He hates to lose, he hates having depths, he hates pity, he hates handouts. He always wants to operate from a position of superiority, and he will not accept anything less than the moral high ground. This explains Hisoka's badge during Hell's Arena, why he extended his training with Benolt, why he refused to let Tsugiura hold the ball. These are just a couple of examples, but there are so many more scattered throughout the series. The type who will spend hours stranded on the side of the road trying to fix his car before asking for help. I know because I'm the same way. Way too prideful. The reason why this is much more significant than the prior occurrences of Gon's pride getting the best of him is this the first time that the burden of Gon's pride fell on someone else, instead of mostly on himself. Before, if Gon made situations more dangerous for himself because of his pride, only he would be affected negatively. However, this time Killua took the full brunt of the burden, and broken, mangled hands. Sooner or later I will make a video to cover Gon's pride and how it was always a precursor for the darkness within him that we see released during the Chimera Ant arc, within his interactions with Miriam, P2, and Komugi. Hey, J. Kell said it best, man. Pride is a devil, and it has a tireless hold on Gon here. Razor dishes out a full power surge to the allied forces, and it took maximum effort from Gon, Killua, and Hisoka to stop it. Gon answers back with Ren that made Razor shiver, and a punch fabled by the gods. Razor blocks it and ricochets it back. Gon passes out, and dodges the counter as a result. And Hisoka, the true trump card, slingshots it back to Razor and sticks it to him, knocking Razor out of bounds. Giving the prideful Gon the flawless victory he put not only his body on the line for, but his closest comrade too. With the defeat of the mob boss, the dungeon raid is complete and the spoils of war are just as expected. A brand spanking new mint condition plot of beach, and one clone given to Tsugiura's guild, where our trio keeps the original. The bomber, watching the whole thing, presses them for the card. Shit, even the allied forces are scared of the high top full of killers, so they strike up a deal to deal with them. If I can hold them off for 3 weeks while y'all get ready, we want the wild luck Alexandrite. Deal. All whilst Hisoka and the trope closed in on the exorcist to exercise Krollos' affliction. Tsugiura's guild continued their Vietnam-like guerrilla warfare against the bomber gang, forcing Genthru to turn to more nefarious methods to slow down their annoying attacks. He suspects someone is supplying Tsugiura's guild with spell cards. He decides to kill anyone who visits the spell shop who has come into contact with Tsugiura, and extorts those who didn't for spell cards. They get 48 companies, more than Tsugiura's guild, and they go on the offensive. Man, I gotta say, the addition of spell cards adds so many cool variables to these fights that are already wild enough. The trio also give up on Gon's training and focus solely on the master plan to squash Genthru and his henchmen. Then, in chapter 174, 80% through the Greed Island arc, we get the damning news that Bachelor's wife died, so the loss of over half of his fortune was in vain. Very tough, because the point wasn't his fortune or money at all. All he wanted was his beloved fiancée back. I really feel for this guy. The man who would have easily traded everything of monetary value in this material world for the ephemeral intangibles of the ones he truly loved. The news floors to Tsugiura and his guild, who worked tirelessly for the last 5 years for this fortune. Back on the island, the bomber and his high top full of steppers camp the return post for Tsugiura and his guild, All whilst Garonu is the one who really has all 96 cards. The bomber still thinks Tetsu left with the cards, so after 10 days of waiting, he assumes the cards have been lost forever and leaves. Now with the pro hunters gone, the bomber now sets his sights on the trio to get the cards he needs to complete the game. They pull up on the trio and the triple threat match commences. They play cat and mouse for a bit until the trio gets them right where they want them. And these unsuspecting bastards go from culprit to victim. They split them all up, and Biscuit proves it's a boss battle, but for the enemy. When she shows she's the best female barber in town, giving Buddy a fade. Meanwhile, Killua dominates his sub. Gon decides to not stick with the plan and gets in an all-out brawl with Genthru. This is really a battle of wits, as Gon outplays them first by knowing his ability and how to avoid it, second by using Guile to defend against the explosions, third by detecting whether Genthru will use the little bomb or not by analyzing the intensity of his aura, and fourth by doing this man like this, sacrificing both of his arms to get a mean kick on Genthru. Yet another example of Gon's pride getting the best of him. Fifth, he uses a spell to conjure gasoline, inhibiting Genthru from using his bombs. Nah, that shit was smart as hell. Sixth, he traps him in the pit. Seventh, he drops the spirit bomb into the pit while nestling in a tiny cubby for safety. Eighth, he allows Genthru into the hole to deliver a punch that would make Mike Tyson's uppercut look laughable. A punch fabled by the gods, Ja can rock, and rocked his dumb ass. And ninth, they had 6 angels' breath ready to recover not only their wounds, but the enemies too. Gon and his trio with outplay after outplay after outplay, shit was so entertaining to read. The high top full of steppers finally defeated and humbled beyond disbelief, especially when the gang uses the angel's breath on them. Garenu relays the unfortunate news about Batsura and his wife and how the price has been reduced 30% as a breach of contract fee, making the grand prize somehow 4 billion, and Garenu expressing his gratitude splits it equally with the trio. With spirits high and pockets obese, they move to the final step. Once the 99th card is placed in the binder, it activates an event where the victor is awarded the final card in the game, number 0, Ruler's Blessing. The event? An island-wide quiz contest. Everyone converges on the trio to congratulate them and also to negotiate offers for the final card in case the trio doesn't win. A joyous atmosphere amid all the darkness found within this arc. Even the exorcist pulls up to release Genthru's non-bomb. This quiz was serious. Tensions were high. This nigga's heart was beating through his skull and shit. Motherfuckers was probably cheating, like the Naruto tuning exams, but the Honorable Gon scores the high for the class, 87 out of 100. Yup, solidifying the fact that he is still that sharp boy that did not stand up during the tryouts, declaring that he is none other than him. He is him Kardashian, which makes sense because he is walking away with the spoils of this plunder, the biggest booty. The Bullen brothers pull up to try and steal the thunder, they get striked, and the exorcist leaves to exercise. Gon arrives to the castle to claim Ruler's Blessing and is greeted by Dwun and List, some of his old man's old pals. They tell him the history around the creation of the game, where Greed and Greed Island is actually an acronym, where each letter is the initial of each game dev's first name. G for Ging, R for Razor, E for the Game Master twins Elena and Ida, and finally D for Dwun who got hold. The parade happens, they all out, they pick out their 3 cards, Blue Planet is picked for Biscuit, and Paladin's necklace is used to revert the clone plot of Bleach back to what it really was, and a company that Gon will use to see his father. However, Gon meddled with things behind the scenes, to where if Gon uses a company, he is sent to Kite, but if and only if he uses magnetic force, will he arrive to Ging. Ging, you slimy bastard. Gon and Killua to the surprise are met with Kite instead of Ging, and they chat all night by the warmth and illumination of the campfire about events past and events soon to come. Disappointed? Yes, as the nefarious and elusive Ging slips through their juvenile grasp, but hopeful and excited for the journey ahead. All whilst a sinister creature washes ashore. With the conclusion of this arc, spreads the genesis of another, chapter 185. And there marks the official ending of the happenings and atrocities of Greed Island, where many lives, innocent and guilty, were claimed. A game staged in the real world with life breathed into it by real-life NPCs bound by contracts, dancing around the deathly taboo in every conversation. This arc was a wacky trip, and I do want to go further, but let's save all that for another video. Greed Island was Togashi just showing off. Not saying that he did something extremely groundbreaking that shook the industry up and had other manga studios like, Dark Horse or Yen Plus scrambling to find a series to compete. No, not at all. It was just hard to see how Togashi made even a rudimentary game very interesting and well thought out. A little too well thought out sometimes when you were met with large amounts of text to establish and set the story. But allow it fun. This is what Gon has always been waiting for, and he was ready to get active. After seeing a tournament arc, exam arc, and something refreshing like an auction arc, I knew a lot of draws and panics were sore from the nuts busted when this arc dropped. Like the next hit album or EP, this was the hottest shit on the block since sliced bread and crack. All the shonen geek freaks and nerds had a lot of extra pep in their steps as they read this arc in real time, week to week. This was a joy to read and an even bigger joy to make. But hey, thanks for watching. Kiss your left cheek, slap on the right. I'll see y'all when I see y'all, man.
You're weird!
This is